everyone, welcome back to Learn With Me Susan series. I hope all of our videos are being extensively helpful for you. Today we have come back with another part of speech which is very important, and those are called as verbs. And verbs are something that brings action and life to sentences in English. Now let us move on to what is a verb. So since verbs are an extensive subject, I have divided the video into various parts, and this is part 1 of verbs. Now let us move on to the definition of verbs. Now verbs are words that expresses 3 things, that is an action, an occurrence, and state of being. Now to make your understanding easier, I have provided examples for each. Verbs express an action. So here in the first sentence, she runs every morning. So here the word runs becomes the verb as it expresses an action of running. The second one, verbs express an occurrence, something that has happened. So here it rained heavily. So the word rained becomes the verb. The last one, it expresses the state of being. It's like a condition or a state of happiness as it is seen in the sentence. He is very happy. So is becomes the verb in this particular sentence. So overall, what can you tell about verbs? Verbs are words that tell about what the subject of a sentence is doing. So this is very important for you to remember what the subject. If you refer to my previous video, you'll be able to understand what is a subject. So verb describes or it talks about what each subject in any sentence is doing. So basically this is what verbs talk to you about and how it functions in each sentence. Now let's move on to the different types of verbs that can be seen in the English language. The first one is the most common type of verbs that we deal with, that is action verbs. Now as the name suggests, these verbs show action, whether it is physical or mental. Now there are some examples given here. He runs fast. So here runs become the action verb that is used. She writes a letter to her mother. Writes shows the action of writing, becomes the action verb in that sentence. He understands the concept easily. So here when it comes, the sentence shows a mental action, the action of understanding. Last one, similarly, they know all the answers. So the action of knowing, it happens mentally. So again, this becomes an action verb. So this is how you distinguish between physical or mental actions that come under action verbs. Now the second type of verb, they are called as linking verbs, and opposite to the action verbs, these verbs do not show action. This is very important. They actually connect the subject of the sentence with additional information related to the same subject. So this is what linking verbs do. They are different from action verbs. They cannot be explicitly seen in the sentence regarding the fact that they do not talk about the action, but they connect the subject of the sentence with that of the additional information given about the subject. So here are some linking verbs that I've given here as examples. Am, is, are, were, and there's a long list of linking verbs. You can check it out, and these are some of the examples I've written. I am a good girl. So if anybody asks you to identify what is the verb, then am becomes the verb, which is a linking verb. She is a driver. So is becomes the linking verb in the sentence. They were very happy. Were becomes the linking verb. So there are so many candidates who get confused with how these words work as verbs in sentences. So this is what the definition about the linking verbs they stand for, and how they function in each sentence by these are the subjects of the sentences given: I, she, they, and these linking verbs, they link these subjects with the additional information given in each sentence. Third type of verb that can be seen as written on the board, they are called as phrasal verbs, and actually there's a formula for it. Phrasal verbs are a combination of the main verb plus one or more particles. Usually it would be a preposition or an adverb. So when you combine these two together, you get a phrasal verb. Now there are many phrasal verbs in English, and what you have to remember is that these phrasal verbs, when combined together, they form a different meaning than the original verb that is used in that combination. I've given some examples here. She gave up smoking. Now here, this combination of gave and up, they form a phrasal verb which means stopped. She stopped smoking. Now when I take up gave and up separately, it gives me another meaning. She gave smoking or she gave up smoking. So these are all different meanings that come into consideration. Okay. Now the second one, he looks after his children. Now here, looks after becomes a phrasal verb which means he takes care of his children. Now when you take this separately, it does not give a particular meaning that means taking care of. Third one, they ran into an old friend. So ran into is a phrasal verb which means they are unexpectedly meeting an old friend while going for a meeting or a party or anything for that matter. So phrasal verbs, always remember, they are a combination of the main verb along with other particles. So usually we use prepositions or adverbs in combination to create a new meaning. So this is very important for you to understand. Now the next section in verbs, we're going to deal with verb tenses. There would be an extensive video that would be coming up only on tenses. So this is just an introduction to that video. Now verb tenses, what you need to understand, verbs, they keep changing their form according to different contexts. Now when you ask me what are tenses, you can simply say tenses are different times. Okay, verbs change their form to indicate different times. So to make your understanding easier, I have taken the verb run, okay, and how you can put it in 3 different times. So we have, when you talk about tenses, you have 3 main types of tenses: past, present, and future. So when you're talking about something in the past tense, it means that action has been already completed. So she ran yesterday. So she has completed that action that took place yesterday. So you're talking about the verb run in the past tense form, which means the action has already completed. Now when you talk about in the present tense, she runs every day. So this means she is doing that action every day, maybe out of habit, and it talks about, and this is how the verb run has changed its form to runs. Coming to the future tense, she will run tomorrow. So the action has not been completed yet. She is going to run tomorrow, something that will happen on the next day. So this is how you take up any verb and how the verb changes its form according to the different tenses that is used in English language. So please make sure that you attend my extensive video just on tenses. I'll be giving in more explanation regarding each tense and what categories of tenses come under past, present, and future. Next section in verbs, we're going to talk about irregular verbs, and something that most of us get confused easily. Now, irregular verbs, they do not follow the rules of conjugation. Now, what is conjugation? Conjugation means the rules of changing the form of a verb. So I have already explained how verbs change their form according to different tenses or maybe modes or voices. Okay, so irregular verbs, they do not follow the rules of conjugation or changing the form of verbs. Now, usually when we talk about verbs in the past tense, we add ed at the end of these verbs, and these verbs are called as regular verbs. So regular verbs, in short, are verbs to which you can add ed at the end of it when you're using it in the past tense. Okay, so I've given some examples of regular verbs here. Talk. So when the action of talking, when I use the verb in the past tense, it becomes talked. She talked to her teacher yesterday. Same rule applies for the next verb here, believe. Okay, I believed my brother when he told me about his story. So action becomes believed. So you add ed at the end. So similarly, the last one, dance. She danced beautifully for the concert yesterday. So talking about how she danced beautifully as a past event. So conjugation mainly happens in the past tense. We are talking about something that has happened before, or the past participle, which I'll explain in my video regarding tenses. Okay, so regular verbs are verbs to which you can add ed at the end of the verb, like talked, believed, danced. But in English, there is a huge list of irregular verbs to which you cannot add ed. For example, go. You cannot say goed. You either say went, or the past participle becomes gone. She has gone to the market. Or you can say she went to the market. Similarly, the word see. Okay, you change the verb to saw. She saw an elephant, which means she saw an elephant yesterday. The action has completed. Or you can say that she has seen the elephant when you're talking about the past participle. Similarly, another irregular verb is take. So when I talk about in the past tense, I can say that she took the book. Okay, which means that she's already taken. The action has completed. And the past participle becomes taken. She has taken the book to her home. So these are examples of irregular verbs, which means irregular verbs are verbs where you cannot add ed at the end of the that particular word. Now, many students ask me, ma'am, how do you identify irregular verbs? Now, this comes with pure practice. Okay, then you can practice using flashcards, or maybe you can memorize a lot of verbs that that are regular and irregular. And there are certain categories of irregular verbs where they follow a same pattern. Now, there are certain patterns in groups that you can memorize when it comes to irregular verbs, like, for example, sing, sang, sung, ring, rang, rung, drink, drank, drunk. So these all, they come under the same category where they follow the same pattern of changing their forms. Okay, now here we have another set of pattern that can be seen: break, broke, broken, choose, chose, chosen, write, wrote, written. So they also form a distinct set of pattern when it comes to irregular verbs. So irregular verbs, how to identify them? Keep practicing, keep memorizing. The more you practice it, the more it will stay in your memory. So make sure you follow for our next video, which is the second part of verbs that will be coming up soon in our channel.